Yes, it's Jeremy Lefebvre. Hi, Fidelity. Yeah, I'm doing well, thanks. Just having a little trouble with your service today. Yeah, so basically what's going on is I logged into my account and I've tried it on my phone, I tried it on my iPad, I tried it on my Mac, I tried it on my MacBook. I even bought an Android phone just to, see what's going on. But essentially, every time I log in, like all my stocks are up except TTCF, and like that's just not possible. You know what I mean? And so I'm just curious, like what you guys are having for glitches and what's going on. Is it something like AWS is down again, or what's going on? You're telling me the stock's down? No, there's no way. You're gonna tell me all these stocks are up today and Tattoo Chef is down? It's just not possible. Anyways, hey guys, welcome in today's video. Okay, yes, if you called your brokerage, yes, the chef is down despite everything else in the stock market being up, okay? Oh my goodness. So anyways, we're going to talk about the chef here today. I thought we'd do a little dedicated video on my expectations for the chef, which are usually pretty low when it comes to the stock price. But in all seriousness, we're going to talk about the stock price here today. We're going to talk about what I see transpiring here. I'm even going to give my 1-year price target in this video here today. A day like today is pretty depressing for us Tattooed Chef shareholders, right? TTCF. We're looking at every other stock out there. I mean, look at, if you go on a Yahoo Finance, you type in TTCF and you look at what people also watch or basically own, right? You got Corsair's up over 4% today. The Planet's up almost 5% today. Nano Dimension, that's not a stock I own, but anyways, that one's up there, right? That one's up like 7% today. Dropbox is up. It seems like everything's up. Obviously, Tesla's having had an amazing day here. And here's the chef down today. And people are like, oh my gosh, like what the heck? Okay. And so let's talk about this. Let's go in depth on this. Let me give my perspective on what's going to happen with Tattoo Chef stock and those sorts of things. TTCF dedicated video. Okay. And by the way, even STC, look at STC today. Massive day there. Almost a 12% move for STC. Now do keep in mind something to just kind of keep in mind when it comes to TTCF stock. And this is really, really important. Is remember, as these stocks really got destroyed, some of these stocks like an STC and many others, Tattoo Chef didn't get it nearly as hard as some of these other stocks. They got it right in the back half of 2021, but they didn't get it as hard as some of these other stocks. Some of these stocks, look at STC for instance. It was $16 in the summertime. And then, it was $2.29, in December. So nonetheless, some of these stocks got it way harder. Like Tattoo Chef didn't have that sort of fall versus some of these other stocks that did. So just keep that in the back of your mind, okay? Now, I'm over 75,000 shares deep when it comes to TTCF stock. So the question is, when will this stock move? And will I be buying more of this stock in 22? Okay. By the way, today, the market cap's about $1.2 billion on this one here today. Volume low volume, 757 shares traded here today. There's no volume in the stock right now, just flat out. Average volume is almost 1.3 mil. So despite a day like today, there's just no volume in the stock at the moment. Okay. So first thing we got to understand is, this was definitely one of those tax loss harvesting candidates in November, December. I don't think it was nearly as big of a one as many other stocks because this one didn't have that sort of downfall. I think most people are in the stock anywhere between $16 and $21, right? And so there's no doubt there was some tax loss harvesting that likely happened in November and December, and that money will likely come back in the stock in January and February. It wasn't as much as some other stocks because, like I said, some of these other stocks, people are down 30, 40, 50, 60%, 70% on, some of the small cap stocks. Tattoo Chef just wasn't one of those sorts of stocks. But I look for some of that money to likely enter back in January and February. And it's not just Tattoo Chef stock that's going to benefit because this is going to be many other various stocks as well in the market that obviously had people tax loss harvest, which if you don't know tax loss harvesting, basically what it is, let's say you got a bunch of gains on a stock, right? And let's say you've taken a bunch of gains during the year, right? And then you got another stock or two that are down huge. You go ahead and sell off that stock and then buy it back in 30 or 60 days, depending upon your situation essentially. And now you have to pay way less taxes, right? And so a lot of people do that. And it's fairly popular. Let's just put it that way. And if you look at the last few trading days of December, it kind of shows you that this happened, right? I mean, look at the last few trading days. The stock was approaching 17 and then just dropped through the floor all of a sudden. There's no news that came out in regards to Tattoo Chef in those last few trading days of the year, and yet the stock just had a big fall from almost 17 to 15 and some change, right? And so There's no doubt there was definitely some of that money will enter back in January and February. And so that will obviously be a boost to the stock then, right? Now, I think there's some other things that are basically going to happen here. So first off, the next quarter numbers are likely going to come out at the last week of January or the first 2 weeks of February. Now, the company has not officially announced this yet. Very important to keep in mind that the company has not officially announced this yet. That's when I believe they're going to come out with the quarterly numbers, okay? So I think there's three things people are looking for in these quarterly numbers here. I think the first thing is they don't want any type of postponed situation. We know the last quarter was a disaster in terms of like they had to postpone the quarter. It was an ugly situation. A lot of people, it shook out a lot of people that weren't big believers in this one anyways. They had invested in it, right? And we all know the long-term story with Tattoo Chef. This, in my opinion, is the biggest, changing trend in food we've had in generations, essentially, to plant-based diets. I think that's just going to, become this massive thing over the next decade. People moving much away from animal products and, the slaughter of animals. Also for basically environmental reasons as well. I believe people are going to move away from, eating animals like that we have in the past. And so we got this massive change that's going on. Tattoo Chef's going to position phenomenally for that. And so some people, they kind of believe in that vision, but if you all of a sudden, postpone your earnings, it freaks a lot of people out and they're like, jump out of the stock, right? And so that's the main thing, no postponed situation this time, right? Second thing people are looking for is, to kind of hear what the last quarterly numbers are. So as far as last quarter, the company is expected to do less than 30% revenue growth. So pretty small number. And so everybody wants to see, are they going to beat that number or are they going to miss that number? I'm definitely hoping for a beat. I don't want to see this company ever growing less than 30% anytime soon. And I want to see them keep growing 30% plus quarter in, quarter out, okay? And especially as far as branded sales go, those I'm really looking for 40% plus consistently quarter in and quarter out for the foreseeable future. Number three thing people are looking at for this company is a 2022 guide that should come out in this quarterly report. They should likely revenue guide for the company, and we're going to look at those numbers here in just a moment. But that's going to be really, really important because, if you're a long-term investor in this or even, looking at it from a short-term standpoint, whatever they guide is going to be really, really important to understand growth rates and what the company expects for numbers with this company, right? So if we go ahead and we look at numbers here, as far as current quarter, only expected 29% revenue growth. And I mean, for the food industry, 29% is phenomenal, but that's not phenomenal for Tattooed Chef, right? Tattooed Chef, they've been trying to shrink down their essentially non-branded items business because they've always had a private label business. They're trying to shrink that down. But when you shrink that down, it hurts your overall numbers. And so, like, for instance, the last quarter, Tattooed Chef had like 58% branded revenue growth, right? But their numbers were held back and they only ended up posting 40% something revenue growth because of the private label business. I'm kind of taking that away and trying to, basically kind of wind that down so they can just focus full time on the branded business, which is going to be the profit engine. And that's the whole future. And that's why I'm investing in this company. I care less about the private label business. You have to kind of, slowly unwind that business, right? And slowly let it go. Because if you just do it overnight, obviously it makes the numbers look horrible in the short term, right? And you don't want necessarily a situation like that. So, 29% there. As far as the March quarter, analysts only have them growing 28.9%. That's a really interesting number because usually what happens, especially in the first quarter of the year, a lot of folks, try to change to healthier diets, right? And try to, make moves in their life, whether that means, changing to plant-based diets, vegan diets, things like that. A lot of people like to move toward that direction in the first quarter of the year. And somebody like a Tattoo Chef would usually get a lot of big deals with Costco, Sam's Club, things like that. So 28.9% revenue growth, I think that's a little low. I think that's actually, pretty decently low. And I think they'll likely, if they do guide for the next quarter numbers, which we'll not know for sure, I think they'll guide higher than that. As far as 2022, analysts right now, there's only 3 analysts that cover the stock. Analysts have them growing revenues 32.8% next year, which once again is phenomenal for the, a food company, but, Tattoo Chef, the expectations are different, right? Because it's a high growth company. So I think they're going to go way over 300 mil. I think they got 300 mil plus in the bag, in my personal opinion. The question is, do they guide for 300 mil? I think, after this past year, I think if anything, the management team might take it a little more conservative come in with beats throughout the year, and get Wall Street to really back the stock in a major way, right? Because the last thing you want is to disappoint again. So I think whatever the number is Tattoo Chef puts out, I think that's going to be a number that they're going to likely easily beat just across the year, okay? As far as the 2022 EPS expectations go for the stock, 22-cent loss is expected for next year when it comes to Tattoo Chef. I think that's going to, I think that's a really high number. And I think the loss is going to be closer to probably to 15 cents or maybe 10 cents, something like that. I think expect them to lose money overall in 22. You got to understand they're getting into new product categories, snack products, and many other various products for this company. So when you have something like that transpiring, there's no doubt, in new product categories, the scaling of new lines at new factories, things like that. There's no doubt that there's going to be, that's just costly. That's just flat out, and that's costly for every single business that ever tries to scale up anything, right? And so that's going on, right? As far as the overall year, and then I'll get into my price targets, and if I'm, going to buy the stock in 22, obviously I have over 75,000 shares of this stock right now. I think this is a year for Tattoo Chef where they just have to execute. They just have to prove themselves throughout the year. I don't even think they really have to tell the story that much. I think most folks understand the story. They just got to execute. They just got to put up the numbers and come in with beats and beats and beats every quarter and become that type of company that investors are confident they're going to beat numbers quarter in and quarter out, right? There was a time when in Tesla stock where, Tesla was really just disappointing. They kept missing deadlines. They kept missing quarterly numbers. And, folks started to lose a lot of faith in Tesla because they just couldn't hit numbers, literally, right? And when it comes to a stock like Tattoo Chef, they're in that moment right now where they've missed numbers, right? They missed even their own earnings date last quarter. And so now it's just execute, man. This is a huge growth company with huge opportunity in front of it over the coming years. Just hit the dang numbers and beat the dang numbers consistently throughout the year, and the stock will be rewarded, right? The stock will go to 20 plus in 2022. My price target's 22 for the stock, by the end of the year. I think I might be a little conservative with that number, but that's my number. 22 maybe, okay? But at the end of the day, this stock will be rewarded as long as they put up the numbers, right? As far as analyst coverage, as long as this company's executing, putting up big numbers, the analysts will come to the stock and start covering the stock, and it'll start getting the publicity it really deserves, being one of the leaders in the plant-based movement that's going on right now. That is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger over the coming years, right? We know how much this market's going to take off. If you've done any research into this industry, you know what's going to happen here, right? And so they have to basically, just kind of do that here, okay? Now, let me just kind of talk to you guys for a moment about, me and the stock and am I buying the stock in 22, those sorts of things. As far as I go, I likely buy some more shares in 22. I'm at the place with Tattoo Chef where I've built out my position. So if the stock just started to go up a bunch, right, and all of a sudden it climbed to 17, 18, 19, 20, I'm good with what I hold. However, the stock remains down here, and especially if it was to go any lower, right, which we've seen throughout time, the stock has, incredible support in the $15 to $16 range. That's something we do know, right? If it was to ever break out of 15, then I'm absolutely a buyer in that sort of scenario. Obviously, I don't really have to tell my whole story on why I'm so bullish on this company for the long term. I think I've told that 100 times in the past, but I'm absolutely a buyer if the stock goes, to anything below 15, let's put it that way. But on the flip side, I'm good with kind of what I have. I have over 75,000 shares of the stock that I'm holding for the long term. And, now it's just kind of, the company just has to execute. They just got to put up the numbers quarter in, quarter out, come in with the beats. And like I said, the stock will be rewarded. Every single stock I've ever seen in the stock market that executes and hits their numbers and keeps beating analyst estimates and keeps beating them, they all get rewarded. Not in the short term, but over the course of a year, 2 years, 3 years, they're all rewarded. That's just a flat out honest truth. And so the Tattoo Chef story, they don't have the biggest expectations. That's the great news, right? They just got to come in and beat these numbers, and next thing you know, analysts will fly in, and then by this time next year, it should be between 5 at the minimum and 10 analysts covering the stock, and it'll start to become a more widely known and owned stock out there by funds and other investors. And then as it gets closer to profitability, there'll be a new group of investors that jump on, because some folks don't like the losses they've taken recently, and so they won't even consider a stock like this. Then when the company actually reaches profitability, that's when you get the massive influx. Basically, as soon as that switch happens from unprofitable company to profitable company, there's just a massive switch that happens there, and I think they'll likely have some profitability in 2023. Okay. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, in regards to the chef, much love, and have a great day. Don't forget to subscribe.